Hey everyone, Andy Moss here on Sunday evening, and just a quick, abbreviated, perhaps a bit informal look at the weekly charts here. If you saw my note last week, we had a big weekend with our oldest son getting married. It was a beautiful celebration, and we had a great time with friends and family in a beautiful setting. But with that, I was away from the markets on Thursday and Friday and didn't look at much. I'll admit I did peek at SpaceX a few times to see where it opened and where it closed and that kind of thing. But getting ready for the week here, there's one development that I wanted to be sure and point out with you all, and that is easily seen right here on the roadmap, and that is the fact that prices are on the stock index futures are making higher highs and higher lows and now above a slightly rising 5-day moving average. There's the S&P, here's the Qs. Let's look at the ETF version because this one shows with the green here. That means price is above a rising 5-day moving average. We still have the month-to-date anchor right here. That's the green line, and it is providing some resistance here so far for SPY. Qs are above it, and notice IWM here. We're going to take another look at that in a second, and here's the DIA. So moving over to the weekly charts on screen there. Bear with me here. Here's the weeklies on SPYs. And holding up here pretty well, just under the flat 4-week moving average, above the 10-week, and holding up pretty well. RSI still in a good position here. Volume was a bit heavier this week, which is maybe not a surprise with a little bit of increased action and velocity and prices. Look at the big rebound here on the Qs. And we'll dig into that a little further too. Almost all the way down to the rising 10-week and then back up for a close over the 4-week. So that's a strong rebound there in the tech-heavy NASDAQ 100 sector. DIA, look at that. That's a new weekly high close. Again, after a strong rebound, which, if I'm correct, came mostly on Friday. And IWM, new weekly high close there. So this market has done quite a bit of repair here in the last couple of days, or the end of last week. Even Bitcoin is trying to find a bounce. This is the new weekly candle here, maybe forming a little bit of a hammer, and a long way to go before we get next week's candle and see if that, or excuse me, this candle will reset here at, I believe, midnight tonight, and we may be able to be on the lookout for confirmation of this potential reversal pattern there. Not that the patterns are all that important. The important thing is that we're seeing two attempts now to bounce off of the roughly $60,000 area. So the dollar chopping around here in the shaded area, holding this below this VWAP from the highs. No major developments there. Volatility just kind of chugging along. And the international, another, not quite a weekly high close, but strong rebound there. Again, I'm going to go through these pretty quick. And China holding support where it needs to for now. Still a long way to go. Bonds, nothing exciting there. What I wanted to look at here is crude oil. Testing this anchor from the December lows again, so some relief in crude. Perhaps that frees stocks up to get a little more rotational buying power there. Gold, another weekly bar or candle below the 200-day moving average. So a little bit of a rebound there off the lows, but no major development there in gold. Our relative strength comparisons, here they are individually. This is the value and the growth, and this is a strong shift back toward a continued move in the direction of value there. So sorry for jumping around so much, but value stocks still picking up, which if we think about the Russell, the Russell 2000 is not a growth or value index, but there is a component of small cap value in there. Maybe that had something to do with IWD being strong. Here is discretionary versus staples. Together we see staples were stronger on the week, but just trying to put in a bit of a reversal here. That remains to be seen. So now what I really want to get into, semiconductors, new high. Nice week there. XBI still holding up well, not breaking down, back over the moving averages, testing this area. So wouldn't be surprised to see an attempt, at least, at biotech, XBI, to break out of this kind of channel consolidation here that's 8 or 9 weeks old and look for a continued move higher. That's a big if, but that's something to be on the lookout for. We know the line in the sand down here around this 126 to 127 area, if that's holding, that's the first good sign. Now we need to see a move over this. If we draw a little bit of a trend line in here, something like this, and then beyond the high of this candle here. Software, still pretty ugly, but maybe trying to bounce off of this high from where this was way back in 2021, and the rising 10-week moving average there. That's a lot to be proven there yet, but an initial reactionary bounce off of that level. Mag 7 doesn't look great. More downward pressure, but holding the 40-week moving average. And here's one that we've been noting and really need to pay attention to, in my opinion. This is the XLF. I've been talking about what happens if the financial sector gets involved. And so rather than everything breaking down and getting really ugly, we saw a really strong second week of upward momentum in financials. And so they're breaking out of this consolidation here, which was right on a Fibonacci level coincidentally, but back over the moving average. The 10-week is still below the declining 40-week, but this is the action that I was looking for to potentially add some oomph or some momentum to this market all the way around. So that's a good sign there, seeing the financials get involved. We'll see what it develops into, if anything. Energy stocks still consolidating and getting very tight here over the last 3 or 4 weeks. I don't know what to make of it. There's too much noise and back and forth in the Middle East and elsewhere to really hone in on the oil stocks, for me anyway. I'm sure other people are very good at it, but that's my take on it. And then where I looked at Mag 7, Apple came down, testing the rising 4-week. Amazon, maybe some initial support here at the center of the Bollinger Bands, which are very wide in the rising 40-week there. Google holding up. Meta still looks pretty nasty. Microsoft, like the software sector, another second week down. Really nasty looking action there on Microsoft, similar to the software sector. NVIDIA holding up fine. It's not breaking out and moving away. In fact, it's still drifting lower, but trying to hold this rising 4-week, and the VWAP anchored off of this recent low from March. And then Tesla just not going anywhere yet. No directional resolution as it holds in here very well, but not going anywhere yet. So there's kind of the action in a nutshell. Those are the things that I really wanted to point out. Is XLF up, oil down, Bitcoin trying to get early signs of some support, and it's worth watching for development. And for me, that's more of a risk on, risk off kind of appetite measure than it is a trade setup. IWM new highs, DIA new highs, and the really important part is this roadmap showing higher highs and higher lows above a rising 5-day moving average. This is back on a 30-minute time frame here, so we're back to the shorter time frames. This is the signal to tell me to say, hey, maybe we need to be considering more offense relative to the last several days or weeks. And so while we're on the subject, might as well pull up SpaceX here and just run through the action. This is, if you bought the open, you did okay, depending on where you trimmed. I'm talking hypothetically here, of course, but what I want to point out is look at the VWAP from the opening candle, the opening 2-minute candle. It had an initial rise and came back and tested VWAP very clearly. This is something we look for repeatedly in Alpha Trends. This is a tool that means a lot to us on multiple different time frames. And there's the SpaceX action for the first day of trading. We'll see how it goes the rest of this week. I'm sure a lot of people will still be watching. But once again, this is the bulk of the update here. So we'll see what happens. We still have, these trips up into 744, 745 on the SPYs have not been breached yet. That seems to be a pretty important level on this shorter time frame. Qs maybe not quite as clean. This was 723 on the way down, 725.70 on the way up. This high of this bar candle was 717, and then over here we're still in the 724. So, excuse me, I think I told the low there. That was 722 over here, and 723, 724 in this area. So that's something to watch for. What happens when the futures open at 6 p.m. on Sunday? And we'll see if they progress higher. Can they continue the series of higher highs and higher lows above that rising 5-day moving average? So we'll watch the futures. We'll watch some baseball. We'll watch hockey tonight. Let's go Hurricanes. It's the game, potentially the last game of the Stanley Cup final, and we've got lots to do here this evening. So have a great rest of your Sunday. We'll be back with more early tomorrow morning.